Lots of changes happening with Tesla in the last 2 months. The launches and progress of Tesla is being overlooked, from the new Model 3 being released in the US, the beginning of the rolling out of full self-driving version 12, and of course the Cybertruck ramping. So today I wanted to speak to someone who has both direct experience with FSD 12 and who knows the new Model 3. And on a higher level, let's discuss the rate of innovation that Tesla's doing. I've got Sat here with us. He's a longtime investor with Tesla since the IPO, or just right after the IPO. Thank you so much, Sat, for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Herbert.
So, you and I have had these, interviews already a few times. But what I wanted to ask you today is, because you have actually seen the new Model 3, you've actually have the full self-driving version 12, and you've been playing with it. And you just told me now that you actually sat in a Cybertruck as well. So let's go through that. And overall, what I want us to talk about is, just in the last 2 months alone, there's all these things that are happening, and yet they're being overlooked. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Tesla doesn't get enough focus on the rate of innovation that they're doing. The Model 3 refresh, I mean, they didn't have to do all that stuff, but they went way beyond that anybody was thinking. So it's amazing the amount of stuff that they put into that and still didn't touch the price. Because it's a new one, they didn't change the price, just, regional changes. And man, the V12, man, it's a whole game changer. It's unlike the other version updates. It's very, very human-like. And Cybertruck, yeah, it was the easiest car that a vehicle that I've ever started driving with.
Yeah. So tell me about which one. Let's go through first the full self-driving, like, because that's a big one. So you've got version 12. You're one of the early users. Tell me what you're experiencing. Is there any major critical issues that you've had? Is there edge cases that you've seen that it can now do that it couldn't do before?
Yeah, so I posted a few of them already because I specifically waited to go to that construction area.
Yeah.
Because it would have trouble navigating it nighttime, daytime, because the construction site, there's never anything that's the same, right? Never. So in that area, they're changing stuff, moving the cones. And the way that I navigated, the first time I went was at nighttime. I couldn't see the ground. I just know from going there several times that, oh, this part has a bump, or they didn't finish this part of the street, so let's just slow down. But version 12 knew exactly where and did it exactly the way I would have done it. So previously, it wasn't as smooth. And there's this little jerkiness that's on the edges. Version 11 was pretty good too. But there's this little jerkiness when you turn, or some of these bumps where you have to navigate changes. And V12 did much better at it. And it felt much more intuitive, as if I'm driving it, as a human is driving it. And it almost feels like it is seeing stuff. So I know that the system is completely different than the previous ones. There was another one where there's two traffic lights, and one's immediately after it because there's a railroad. And the second one would often be red, and the first one would be green. Mm-hmm. So version 11 would just start going faster, actually. And I see the red light behind it, and V12 is able to see both of them. So that difference made a huge difference, because every time it gets the second one, I would have to press the brake and disengage because it's not going to stop fast enough, because it's just accelerating. So version 12 was able to see both of it. It stayed at the same speed, and then it slowed down. So it's able to see that nuance, that small difference. That's not necessarily a normal setup. That I don't see that setup anywhere else that I've driven. So on those kind of edge cases, it's gotten leaps and bounds improvements. The other parts, I think it's a little aggressive for me at times. And there's one time is rush hour, making an unprotected left turn, and it probably could have made it. But from my threshold, I think, again, this is personal preference, right? When it comes to how long of a distance do you leave out before you start making that left turn. I think because it can accelerate, it probably would have made it, but it didn't feel like it was safe enough for me to take that risk. So that's when I disengaged, but it's much more aggressive, which makes sense because it's more human-like too. So there are certain parts where I feel like it's a little too much on certain parts, but overall, the smoothness of the ride, the intervention is much less. Uh, the first ride I did was 0 disengagements, so it was, yeah. For me, the change has been significantly better, and it's always kind of like when you update something and change something from being a little too conservative and then to a little aggressive, you're gonna have certain situations that would be, oh, it's a little aggressive there, but that's where they're always gonna work on. But overall,
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
smooth now.
I'm actually surprised that you're saying that there's actually areas where it's too aggressive, because it wasn't version 12 neural net learning from humans, but learning from the best drivers of humans, who I assume would be who knows how to be careful when they need to be careful. Do you feel like this is like a better driver?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I think if you had a spouse that was kind of touchy about the FSD, I think there'll be much more. I think majority of them would start approving because how smooth the ride is. So, of course, you're going to have edge cases. It was just released a couple months ago, so it's still in the works. But the massive improvements you saw is great, because some updates made it feel like it was worse. So when you compare it to overall updates that's happened, man, this is a whole different level. And other people who had V12, they're posting and talking about the differences too, and it's not a coincidence, because it's a different system, and they are using the AI vision right now to assess while also having the previous data. So you can only go so far when you have like everything mapped out, and then you hit a construction zone, and no one construction zone, not even the same one, is going to be the same. Because and then so this is what happened on the posting. I posted it, and people are like, "Oh, the line there is not dotted. It's like a normal. You're in the wrong place. Maybe FSD version 12 did it wrong." It's like, no, it's a construction area. They forced us to go to that area, right? So like I had to repost the other part of the video to show them. It's like, so the construction part, and then they put down lines before, they erased it, half erased it. So it was navigating through all that. So it makes sense why people who don't see the situation or construction and can make that constructive criticism, it makes sense. So I was explaining that part where it's actually actively understanding what's happening. That's the difference. Because before I would have to disengage because it wouldn't notice. Like I didn't notice even from before, like the lane just disappears.
Yeah.
That wasn't something I remember, but because they forced us to push all the way to the right shoulder, I ended up on that side. So I don't know why the line was not dotted, or like it wasn't changed. It didn't make any sense to me, right? But I can't tell because it's changing every other day. So that's the whole point of the version 12, that it's able to assess the situation even if you don't know. It's able to manage to get through that construction site. Whereas before, I would have to be really nervous at times because it's completely different every other day. So, and I was in fact avoiding sometimes because at nighttime you can't see, right? So it was much harder, and it has a huge curve going into it, so you have to actually slow down. It was able to understand that too, because if you actually didn't slow down, inertia feels like you're gonna go out, and it's a two-way pass. So if there's a car coming, you're gonna hit it. So it's able to understand, slow down and go over, right? It's pitch black because construction area. It doesn't have the lights, right? So there's so many obstacles that's in that area. That's why I wanted to go back there and then test it out, because it's assessing so many things on the spot. And I have to look also, and I wasn't paying attention fully to the front side. I was looking at the side because the other side was coming as an angle towards me and diagonally. That's not normal. You're supposed to go, like this, perpendicular and parallel to each other. And it was coming in sideways, diagonal to me, because the cones were set up that way.
Right.
And it's going into the lane that I would normally be in. So it's in the opposite direction. So I'm watching the car, making sure it doesn't hit me, while version 12 is navigating the cones, right? So I'm able to actually be safer because I'm able to see the car while V12 is driving for
that's
me.
right.
So it's safer. It's not like more unsafe being in the construction, supposedly going the opposite way. It wasn't, or too far. It was actually doing the correct thing, and I'm able to take the eyes momentarily to see the other car coming, which would have been more dangerous if that car wasn't slowing down and going the right trajectory. So in that sense, I feel like it's significantly better.
Do you find that the like if you've had the FSD 12 now for at least a week or two, right?
Yeah.
If you keep driving in the same location, does it now know it and starts getting better? Because I've heard that the version 12, one of the things that actually has memory, it has the maps now versus before it didn't have that. Is that true or not true?
So that's the part that's really hard because I can't tell because I feel like I can't tell if it's progressing in that sense because it's assessing the situation at that moment. That's the way I feel it. So it's not like I think it is more like human. So if it is using utilizing memory, I think it is because every time it's there, it's reassessing it at that moment because the situation is different. So I feel like it is that way because I don't know all the software, stuff that's going into the V12. They actually put very
Yeah, I
little
don't
on it.
know. Yeah, it's just that I think that version 11 and previously they optimize for it to pretend that everything it's seeing is for the first time ever because it wants to teach it how to react to whatever is presented to it. But with version 12, I believe that they've turned on like what I call memory and maps. And so it helps. Like, let's say if I'm driving out of my driveway is this curvy driveway, and it now knows that that's what it is, and it'll be able to, remember that that's what it is. And of course, it adds on to your, just like we do, right? Like I know this road, but I'm ready for any changes that happens to it. But yeah, I'm curious to see if it gets more and more confident once it's driven the same route over and over and over again.
Well, I mean, I feel like it is more comfortable with the routes I've taken if it's the same ones, but I don't know
Mhm.
the back processing
Yeah,
if it's it
whether or
made
not
it,
they're doing that.
but
Okay.
I feel like it's better.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, Typically better. I even changed the route in mid route, and then
Mhm.
immediate, the second the map changed, it immediately changes. So uh, it's really hard because sometimes all the lights are green, so I can't tell if because
Yeah,
before one was red and one was green, so
yeah,
that's why it's on the spot. It's always a little bit different. You have to recreate the exact same situation every time, and that's not necessarily going to happen all the time.
yeah. That's right.
But it's
Mhm.
assessing every situation, so I feel like it's more like human in that sense.
Okay. So, you are one user. There's, I think I understand 2% of all FSD beta users are using this now, got 12. I mean, and then we're reading a lot of people's experiences across, X. And right now this looks like it's very, very positive, right? And it's spouse ready, it's much smoother. And then they're showing all these edge cases that 11 couldn't do. But in general, like what's your sense? Is this something different? Is this going to solve FSD? What's your projections of you know this this technology?
Well, I use the FSD in general 85-90% of the time,
Hmm.
and there's already very few disengagements. There's even fewer disengagements with this one. I think it's ready for more wider, even wider release. You're always going to have. I still think it has some cases they have to learn from.
Yeah.
In different areas, I know some are in the Midwest. There's like more roundabouts. That's not common in LA. So there's so many different edge cases that I know it's going to have time. It needs time to learn from that. But in terms of the actual ride, for majority of the time that I've been using, it's
Hmm.
much smoother. I think when you're the passenger and it's jerky, or the curve is a little, unsettling, it's not a good ride for the passenger. And in that sense, I think it's already met most of what most passengers would be comfortable with. And so, in that sense, I think it is getting really close to just almost for anyone. It's just that those edge cases will always exist. And they had to cover
Hmm.
all of those to be able to do it. And this is the first iteration where they're actually combining the actual thing that's happening at the moment and actively doing that, and then still drive like a human. So in that sense, I think it's quite a huge step change in this one, and I think it's ready for most people that's not too cautious. I mean, there's always someone who's going to be like too scared, right? But it won't be for those people. But for most people, I think it's pretty ready for it.
Wow. Okay. I mean, this is it. We've been waiting for full self driving version 12. We know this is neural net, kind of AI coded. And it seems so far that it's very positive, right? I mean, I couldn't have asked for any other rollout in the kind of experiences and reports that people are having now. It's looking very positive. I'm glad that you're using it. At least we have somebody we know who's actually using it on a daily basis. I trust your opinion, of course. Any last thoughts on FSD when what you're expecting next with this? Yeah, you think it should be ready for rollout to further people. Now, you're LA, it's sunny, right? So that's one of
Yeah.
the issues is that weather is something that they know that is an issue.
Well, first couple of days, it's actually been raining a lot. So
Mm.
it was in the rain actually, and it did really great. Uh, I was having a hard time seeing because it's so dark. It's raining.
Yeah.
So it did pretty good for. And the first time I went through the pass was actually really wet roads. So in terms of rain and LA standards, I think it's fine. I mean, I've taught someone in what I believe maybe it was Scott in Florida, where the other states have way worse storms. Maybe it may have a little more trouble, but I mean, rain was pretty hard in LA. There's pools and puddles. So there was one time it kind of stopped and was very conservative because it saw this gigantic pond at the off ramp.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like if you went fast, you'd like literally have a huge wave higher than a human, right? So in that sense, I tapped the accelerator a little bit and then it was able to go, but
That's
that
good.
was a huge body of water. So I think it's thinking correctly and making sure that it's not an inanimate object and it's safe enough to go through it. And in that sense, like there are certain parts where it is still very conservative. It's still safety oriented. So in that sense, I felt like that whole rain situation actually helped me understand the system better. So, and yeah, I was able to navigate that one. It was just that left turn that seemed a little aggressive for me. So I think once, maybe twice, it was a little bit like that. So there are certain parts where I feel like there's nuances that could be adjusted. But man, overall, I was just like, this is like what we've been waiting for. So
yeah. Okay, cool. I mean, it's learning on its own, right? So it's no longer this, so we got to tell the coders to code this in. It's gonna just figure this out on its own. And it's like a teenager learning how to drive and you saying, hey, don't drive, and then they'll learn how to do that next time. Okay, that's great. That's full self-driving. And then you also got to drive a Model 3, the we call it the Highland, but it's the Plus, the new version. Tell me about that experience and how did you get involved in that?
well, they said, Tesla said they're going to do a free supercharging transfer and the FSD.
Oh, you bought one? Yeah.
Well, I have one in order, but I'm not sure if it's going to make it. That's the only question mark. And ideally, I would want the performance one because I have a performance 3. But I don't know if it's going to make it. Like one, if it's going to make the transfer dates and if the performance is going to be available or not. But the newer cars already, the acceleration is slightly faster than the predecessors. I think 0.3 seconds or so, plus minus, faster for each one. I had the opportunity to drive both, the standard range one and then the long range all-wheel drive one, and the ride is way smoother. They have different suspensions. The ride is much better. The Tesla employee who was with me was saying some people purposely went over the potholes, and it was did much better. So, and I was able to drive both of them. I obviously am biased to having a performance car, so I like the faster acceleration with the all-wheel drive. But the interior is like a Model S. It's like what they're saying. It's like a mini Model S. It's the luxury in it. I got to turn on the ventilation. I could feel it within like 5 seconds, and it's kind of cloudy, been raining, so I was cold already. 10 seconds in, I was already cold. So the ventilated seats are pretty awesome that we didn't have before. And I'm driving from the first interior design one, so it's not even the one that slides. It flips up on my center console. So the change in the interior to me feels much bigger because it's even from the first generation, and this current generation is like completely different. It looks and feels much more like a Model S luxury kind.
Wow. Yeah.
The seat cushion, the angle of the cushion on the shoulders, there's more of it, so you feel a little more snug. Obviously, the light bar makes it just looks more sleeker. So, and I saw the white one, the white interior too. It looks really great. The Alcantara on the side of the doors, it just makes it look infinitely better. So, sorry, I forgot the biggest part that they have. It's not, you can't see it. It's the acoustic windows.
Yeah.
The
Can't hear
sound
anything.
is nothing like the other vehicles. It's insanely quiet. It could be arguably quieter than the Model S.
Yeah.
Because the windows better for dampening. The door is, they have another latch on the bottom, so it's more secure, and the sound dampening that they did indoors. It's all the windows. And I saw the thickness of the window. To me, it looks like it's a little thicker than the current
Nice.
double pane
Wow.
windows.
Yeah.
So you can, when you honk and stuff, it feels like it's far off. Like it doesn't sound like the way it is with most cars, or you just hear really blaring in your own ears.
Yeah. Yeah.
Way quieter. So the ride is much quieter. I was having a conversation with the Tesla employee the whole time. I didn't
Yeah.
have to raise the voice or anything. I didn't have the air noise, and that's what my
Mhm.
problem is. It's like the performance car that I have, Model 3 that I have, the air noise when I go at higher speeds, it's a little
Yeah.
distracting. I can still have the
I can't
conversation, but it's
stand it.
kind of annoying. So I would have to put my headphones to really have a clear
Yeah.
to clearly hear the voice. And for the refresh Model 3, it's just so quiet. You're not going to need anything. Just the speaker is going to be fine. And I was like trying to see if it was just because the outside was quiet or there weren't people, but it was in like middle of the day, bunch of people, a bunch of cars. So I think it's going to do amazing.
So yeah, so obviously it's an amazing car. Everybody's just raving about this. Tell me why you think that they priced it still pretty high. It doesn't qualify for the IRA credit, unfortunately. And so it's kind of like right there. Do you think it's still going to be selling like hotcakes because it's such a better car? You know, like there's a clear segmentation difference between the Model Y and the Model 3.
I think there is. Well, for me, like for example, I wouldn't have thought of changing without the free transfer supercharging, because the free supercharging for the life of the car,
Yeah.
that is very, very valuable. So I'm perfectly fine with my car.
Yeah.
The big problem I had with my car was the nails in my tire. Right, that was the biggest issue I had in my car. I'm perfectly happy with the car. It's just that the hardware change and the sound dampening is so good that if they're gonna let me transfer the FSD and supercharging, then I was like, then it's way better. And this is the other point I want to make too, that I think it doesn't get emphasized. Tesla was more like a car company at the very beginning, and Elon said it's a tech company. Now he's saying it's an AI robotics company.
Right.
We're going through different phases, and I think that's true because I value the feature of the software and of FSD and the supercharging over the hardware of the car. And the reason why is if they didn't
Yes.
transfer it over, I wasn't going to buy a new car, even despite
Yes.
that significant of engineering that they did to make it significantly better. I wouldn't
Yeah.
forego those benefits because I paid $5,000 for my FSD,
Yeah.
and the and then right now it's like $12,000. So there's $12,000 value right there. And the free supercharging, I assessed it from before as $5,000, but because the price is way high, it's like 2.5 times higher than before to control the demand during peak hours and stuff like that. Because it used to be 19 cents flat during the whole day. Now it's like 44 or even 50 at certain high intense places. So the value of it is like more than $5,000 to me. Now it's like $8,000 or more. So I'm getting a value of like $20,000 worth with the FSD and supercharging.
Yeah.
And if I sell my car, I would get somewhere around there, 20 to 23,000, right? So, and it's not that high mileage too. So that's why I was looking at the marketplace. I would essentially get almost a free car to upgrade in terms of value. So to me, it's a no-brainer when it comes to that. I prefer the performance one. I see it. It's not released yet, but I can still live with the long-range one because the comfort is obviously going to be slightly better compared to performance one. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm just saying that the software benefit is going to outweigh the hardware in the future. It's not going to be the hardware that everyone's focusing on and the other OEMs are trying to focus on. It's the software and the other perks that's going to come that makes it significantly better. And Tesla's the only one that's in position to do so, because I paid $5,000 for that FSD. So I think I made my money's worth already because it's got better. It got faster. They added features over the years. I never felt like it was that old until I sat into this one, the new, the refreshed Model 3, because it's so good. The difference that they made, they have more speakers. He let me put music on. It sounds even better. It was already better with all the other Teslas, but this one's even better now because it's quieter too. So there's so many things. Lars on the X was talking about the engineering behind everything, but just as a consumer, just looking at it, hearing it, using it, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah. I love what you said, right? So it is it's not an auto company, it's a software company. It's no longer a software company, it's a robotics AI company. And what you're experiencing, what we're seeing with the cars is it's transforming. I know that people are complaining that FSD is not quite robo-taxi, but here we are, right? It keeps improving. They do over-the-air updates and all of a sudden your FSD is there. So it's delayed significantly, but the car is transforming. Not any, if you buy any other car out there, it would not have changed that at all, not one iota. So now this car is going to be safer. Forget, it's okay if it's not, if you don't like FSD or if you don't like, it's a robotaxi, but at least it's safer at this point. Every single month that goes on, this FSD 12. So that's improving really well. The Model 3, all these design changes, which for sure is going to transfer over to all the new vehicles that they create. They've launched Giga Mexico happening March 3rd now that they've confirmed. The actual construction will begin. Then they're going to start building the compact car. And then, of course, the Cybertruck was released, which is, hugely successful. So, it's just one of those things where it's frustrating when we look at the stock and we go in the stock, it's just not reacting. It looks like a bad year for Tesla. But actually, again, they're continuing to release incredible products that people love and that you experienced it and you're sharing what your experiences with these guys. So thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, it's amazing. The rate of innovation is so fast. You have to compare it to the other competitors or similar industries and companies that's doing it. Tesla's doing it much, much faster, like way faster. I got to drive the Cybertruck for a little bit. Easiest vehicle to drive. The steer-by-wire makes this so easy. It's easier to drive my Model Y. It's so light, and yet the vehicle is so big, and it feels luxurious inside, sturdy. Man, I just so much on that front. Like, it was so easy to drive. I don't drive trucks, so for a non-truck driver and to be able to just drive it that easily, the rate of innovation is so fast in Tesla. It's not comparable, and we're going to see much more of it, right? They supposedly unveiled the other compact car and so forth. So, and I just hope the other OEMs can catch up and get their programs up and running.
Yeah. Step one is create a compelling product. So thank you for sharing your experience with both Full Self Driving and Model 3. Appreciate you, Sat. Follow him on X at SA_futurist. Appreciate your time. See you later, Sat. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.